All right. So I think we will begin now. Uh, I want to first off starting by saying thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking your time on a Friday. I know it's kind of like, on a Friday, why do I have to come, right? But so I really appreciate you guys being here. We're going to go through some slight introductions and then we will jump into this presentation. So I'll start off first. My name is Dennis Garcia. I am one of the academic advisors for CNSM and program coordinators. I'll pass it over to Sergio Temores.
Hello all, my name is CSU Temores. I'm the coordinator of peer learning and I oversee tutoring and peer mentoring for the college. Ephraim?
Hi, everybody. I'm Ephraim Melina. I'm also one of the academic advisors and Thrive coordinators.
Awesome. And we do have a special guest here that will be in the background. Unfortunately, she's in the background, so I'll introduce her. Her name is Shannon Durbin. She is my boss. She's essentially the boss in the center. She is also an academic advisor. So, if you're in the Q&A, just say hi, and we'll kind of review those as we go. All right, so let's jump into the slide. There's going to be a couple housekeeping items that we want to make sure that you know and kind of are disclosed. So first is going to be introductions. This video, or at least this webinar, will be recorded. And then we also ask that your video and microphone are disabled. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature, and then we will answer those towards the end. We will prioritize questions related to the topic as we have limited answers for questions, right? So this particular webinar is going to be strictly about math and chem placement as a CNSM student. And then kind of lastly, we're going to be moving forward and you on the other end, you want to make sure that you're always checking your emails. That is going to be our primary way of actually communicating with you from now until you start your semester. So this is going to be course recommendations. This is going to be important information that we sent out to you um, for you to actually know and kind of prepare if the need is there. Next slide, please. All right, so what is on the agenda? We're going to be discussing upcoming deadlines. We will also be discussing why is math and chemistry placement important. We'll kind of cover some of the basic information about mathematic placement, chemistry placement, and then lastly, we'll kind of jump into the Q&A. Next slide. All right. So first and foremost, the most important dates about placement and academic advising and registration are going to be one of the things that you want to make sure that you write down either on your calendar, on your agenda, right? And the first one coming up, or actually it just passed, was the first year advising survey. So if you haven't kind of completed that, we strongly encourage you that you do. We actually use that information for various reasons. One of the most important reasons is going to be to ensure that your course recommendations are as accurate as possible. Without this information, it just kind of makes a lot of those moving pieces a little bit more difficult when we're delivering these deliverables to you. The math placement deadline is going to be July 10th, or actually, yeah, July 10th. Chemistry placement for certain majors is also going to be in July 10th. And then for the SOAR advising courses, which will be delivered through Canvas, is also July 10th. For those that are kind of figuring out or kind of wondering, hey, when is the SOAR advising registration / orientation? Well, that will be between July 30th and August 13th. Again, every student will have a different date. So keep an eye out on those emails that we will be sending out to ensure that you have that appropriate information on hand. Next slide, please. So why does math and chemistry placement fall in the important category, right? What does it do for me as a student? Well, The course placement helps determine how much calculus and chemistry preparation you will need as a as we part your degree kind of plan, right? We kind of figure out what math or what chemistry do you have to come in, and what course does that correlate to. So course placement also helps advisors recommend the appropriate first-year courses, so you have a schedule that is challenging, interesting, and relevant to you. And then lastly, understanding that your course placement will help your advisor connect with you, and be able to support you and provide resources that are kind of just catered to you, right? The last thing that we want is for a student to be either overplaced or underplaced in these two particular categories, considering that you are going to be either a science or math pre-major. And so we want to make sure that we are starting our first semester strong. Next slide, please. So we're going to kind of discuss how what placement kind of looks like and how can we get to a particular course using our placement scores. So for the following majors, right, if you're in the sciences, either biochem, chemistry, geology, earth science, or in the mathematics, this is also going to be including mathematics, physics, statistics, and then engineering kind of mirrors those requirements as well. So if you end up taking the AP Calculus, and you end up getting a 3 or greater, and this is going to be the AP Calculus BC. There's going to be various ones, right? We have the AB and the BC. So in this one in particular, if you get a 3 or greater, your first semester will be placed in Math 224, which is Calculus 3. Let's say you get slightly under that, then obviously, right, that will put you in a different calculus. So for instance, the calculus AP AB score 3 or greater would put you at a Math 123, which is essentially equivalent to calculus 2. And then the following semester, you would essentially be in Calculus 3. And so that kind of placement is based off of your AP. Anything below, like let's say a 2 or below, would not give you any credit. And so that would essentially just put you on Calculus 1 if everything else checks out. Next slide, please. So this is going to be for Math 122, which kind of I briefly talked about that, but you can meet one of the following and it will place you in Calculus 1. So for instance, if you have a Calculus AP score of 2, then that would place you in Calculus 1. You can also take the ALEKS Math, and this is going to be for those that didn't take a Calculus AP exam during high school. Or let's say you did and you didn't earn a 2. Let's say you earned a 1. Then you can take the ALEKS Math if you feel like you are ready for Calculus 1. And that will kind of help us determine and help you determine if the material that is being reviewed in the ALEKS Math is relevant, if it's something that you kind of connect and remember. And then as long as you receive an 80 or higher, you will be placed in Calculus 1. And then lastly, if you took the Math SAT, you received a score of 680 or greater, you will also have the possibility of getting into Calculus 1 your first semester. And then that kind of just, in the bigger picture, right, it's Calculus 1 the first semester, and then you will be able to move on to Calculus 2 your second semester, as long as you pass that class in the fall. Next slide, please. For Math 113, which is essentially our pre-calculus algebra, or let's say Math 112, which is essential algebra. Let's say you don't take any of these exam scores that I previously talked about. This could be your APs, this could be your ALEKS Math, or your SAT. Let's say you don't have any of those scores in, then you would be placed in either Math 113, Math 111, or just Math 112A your first semester, moving forward to Math 112B and Math 111. It is essential that let's say you get placed in pre-calculus or essential algebra. for these particular majors, you do have to take trigonometry. And so depending on which math placement you do end up getting into your first semester, will determine whether you take trigonometry your first semester or trigonometry your second semester. For those that may be wondering, right? Well, what if I get placed in Math 122, Math 123, which is Calculus 1, Calculus 2, or potentially Calculus 3? Do I have to take trigonometry? The question is, or the answer is no. Students who are get placed in pre-calculus or essential algebra are the only ones that would have to take trigonometry. Okay. And then a couple of other criteria here, just for you to know, is that you do have to have a GPA of 3.5 or less. And if you do, you end up taking Math 93. So let's say your GPA is slightly higher, then you are not required to take that Math 93. Although, if you do need that extra support, you can always take Math 93. That is going to be an equivalence to a support class to ensure that you do pass these particular classes. Next slide, please. Awesome. Okay, so placing out of math, right? We kind of already discussed that, but we'll briefly go into this in a different side of our major. So this is going to be strictly for biology, marine bio, molecular cell, or organismal bio, bioeducation, and microbiome, essentially our biology umbrella. So if you end up getting an APBC score of 3, you have completely met our math requirement, and you do not have to take anything. If you end up getting a 3 in the AP/AB exam, you have also completed the requirement. Let's say you end up getting a 2 or less, then you have not met that requirement. So essentially, you would either have to take a Math 113 or Math 119, depending on additional criteria that we will be discussing. Next slide. All right. So let's say you ended up getting a 2 in your calculus AP. Like I mentioned before, this will place you in Math 119. Let's say you end up taking the ALEKS math and you score an 80 or greater. This also allows you to be placed in Math 119. And then lastly, if you took the Math SAT and you received a 680 or greater, this allows you to also be placed in Math 119. In the event that, and again, you just to reiterate, you don't have to take all of these exams to be placed in Math 119. You can take one, and as long as you meet that criteria, you are golden. Let's say you end up taking multiple. We always end up getting the highest score. And wherever that highest score places you, then that's where you will start. Just for those of you that are kind of wondering. And then just a side note, you do need a year-long high school pre-calculus course. And then a high school calculus course is highly recommended. So essentially, if you took a pre-calculus course for an entire year, then you are golden. You can take Math 119. And if you ended up taking a calculus course in high school, that doesn't grant you credit for the Math 119, but it does help you kind of just understand the material slightly more and, kind of help you throughout that semester. Next slide, please. So placement into Math 113 and Math 112A. So again, you just need to meet the general education mathematics requirements. You can take the ALEKS math placement and score 60 or anywhere between 60 to 79. That will also get you into Math 113. A side note, if your high school GPA is a 3.5 or less, you must enroll in Math 93. Similar criteria to those that are chemistry, math, and physics majors. And then also, let's say you do not do any of the required material to get into Math 113, but you do meet the general education mathematics criteria, then you will be placed in Math 112A your first semester. And then from that point on, you kind of continue moving up in the math courses. Next slide, please. So your first semester, right? You're kind of wondering, hey, what do I need to meet the specific criteria for Math 122? And kind of just an overview, right? You need a Math SAT score of 680 or greater. You also, or not also, but you can also get a Math ACT score of 31 or greater. If you take the Math SAT 2, you can receive a score of 610 or greater. And then the one that we always encourage students is going to be the ALEKS Mathematics Placement Score. If you received an 80 or greater, and then the other two would be your Calculus AP, whether it's your AB or your BC. If you received a score of 2, and either one of those, you'll be able to take Calculus 122 as well. If you take an IB test for mathematics, then you want to ensure that you received a 3 to get that credit as well into Math 122. And then the last two would be your pre-calculus CLEP, your CLEP exam score of a 50 or greater, or a college algebra CLEP exam score of 50 or greater. Next slide. And then this is going to be for our bio students, for those students that are going to be taking Math 119. Similar story, right? We need a SAT score of 630 or greater, an ACT score of 27 or greater, an SAT 2 score of 550 or greater, and then our ALEKS exam score is going to be the same, 80 or greater, as well as our AP for both the AB and the BC exam. You want to make sure that you get a 2 or greater. And then the last three would essentially be the same, right? If you took the IB test, it's going to be a 3. And if you took the pre-calculus CLEP exam, it's going to be a 50 or greater. Or let's say you ended up taking the college algebra CLEP exam, you will also need a 50 or greater to be able to get into the Math 119. Next slide. All right, so what about Math 113 and Math 111? So all we need to ensure that you get placed in this particular class is either an SAT score of 570 or greater, or an ACT score of 25 or greater. And like I mentioned previously, you can take the ALEKS math placement, and let's say you don't receive an 80, that is okay. As long as you receive a 60, between a 60 and a 79, you will be eligible to take that Math 113 course alongside with the Math 111, which is our trigonometry. And then the last kind of criteria that you can meet to be able to be placed in these courses is going to be meeting the general education mathematics criteria, meaning that you are ready to take Math 113. And then for Math 112A, there are no conditions, meaning that if you do not meet any of the conditions I previously kind of discussed, then you would automatically be placed in Math 112A, meaning that you do not, you're not eligible for any of the other courses based off of that criteria. Next slide. So what is ALEKS? This is a question we always get, every year. And essentially, it's a 4 assessments with the opportunity to score better by practicing concepts and within a learning module. So if you've ever taken, like, let's say a Canvas kind of class, and then there's a bunch of modules, essentially that's what it is. It's a kind of a condensed module with a lot of information, a lot of material, and you go through those. And then there's like little quizzes and exams that are given to you. And depending on how well you can do in that learning module, it'll depend, strictly on what your end up score will be at the end. It is a kind of on your own pace type of thing. And so we want to make sure that you work on concepts between these assessments. And the overall assessment's about 5 hours long. So you can take your time if you need to, or you kind of just go through it. There are cooling periods between each assessment. And then once you score an 80 or complete all 4 assessments, you're done, right? So for some students, you'll essentially go through all of the 4 assessments. And for others, you'll kind of just finish a lot sooner than you thought. And so whichever one you meet first is completely fine. And then once that's done, we get that information. There is a deadline, like I mentioned before, for the math ALEKS, and that's going to be July 10th. If you're interested in kind of knowing how can I get started, Dennis, where can I find this information? Well, it's simple. You can just log into your CSULB Student Center, also known as the SSO. Once you get it into your SSO, you can actually find there's a chiclet there, and you can actually start doing that ALEKS assessment. Next slide. All right, so what does my first semester chemistry courses look like? And then again, this is going to be strictly based off of where you get placed. What information are you transferring over to our campus? And then based off of that information, what are you getting credit for? So for instance, if you start off in chemistry 102, that means that you have not met any additional conditions or any additional eligibility based off of, again, what you are transferring over. And this is going to be our intro general chemistry course. Let's say you bring in some AP chemistry and you scored a 2 or a 3, or potentially you took our Chem ALEKS exam and you scored an 80 or higher, or you also got placed into calculus, or you're ready to take calculus your first semester, and you also took a high school chemistry class and received an A or a B, then you would automatically be eligible for Chemistry 111A. There's no way around this. You do have to meet at least one of these criterias to be able to be placed in Chem 111A. Now, for those that meet this criteria, but also brought in extra criteria, right? And this could be you took the AP chemistry, didn't place a 2 or 3, but instead you placed a 4 or a 5. Or you took an equivalent course during high school that meets the Chem 111A kind of credit, right? That means that you transfer that course over to us, and we are giving you credit for the general chemistry Chem 111A. And then at that point, we would place you in Chem 111B, and that's where you would start your first semester. Keep in mind that these placements are going to be based off of, again, what you bring to the campus, what you're transferring over. And at any point, if you feel like you are being overplaced, you can always reach out to your academic advisor and just let them know, hey, I was placed in Chem 111A, but it's been so long since I've actually taken that course. I want to make sure I go in my first semester strong, and I kind of want to get a reintroduction into chemistry. That is completely fine. We can place you in Chem 102. Same thing with Chem 111B. Let's say you ended up getting placed in Chem 111B, and you come in and you're like, you know what? I don't feel like I'm ready for Chem 111B. It's been quite a while since I've taken chemistry. This could be like, let's say, junior year or senior year, but you just want to make sure that you get a refresher and you don't mind taking a whole class for a full semester, then that's fine. We can put you in Chem 111A. The only thing we cannot do is if you get placed in Chem 111A, we cannot place you on a class that is above that. So for instance, Chem 111B, or vice versa. If you were placed in Chem 102, we cannot place you in Chem 111A unless you meet that criteria. Next slide. So for CNSM, first time, first year, Advising Survey. I'm hoping that everyone has already received some form of email communication regarding this, but essentially this survey allows you to share with your advisor what science and math classes you took in high school, what AP, IB, CLEP exams you have taken, and any other transfer credit you may have completed. And I want to emphasize the importance of this again. Um, for our students, our registration is on the later side of enrollment, and so we have an advantage. And I like to say that it's an advantage because you have about a month to submit all of these scores if you do have them, and that will allow us to make sure that when we do send out those course recommendations, that they're as accurate as possible to avoid any changes or last minute kind of mix-ups on the day of your registration. And believe me when I say it does happen where students are like, oh, I forgot to submit my transcript, or I forgot to submit my AP scores, but this is the score that I got, or this is the course that I took. And so it is doable to kind of fix the course recommendations, but it is a last minute type of thing. And so then by that point, you do have to kind of go back and look for courses that fit your schedule. So to avoid all of that, ensure that we have a smoother process on the day of your registration and during SOAR, we just ask that you submit all of that information beforehand. And if you do plan on taking the ALEKS exam, that you end up taking that early on rather than kind of waiting until the last minute to take it, because it does take some time for the scores and all of that information to get processed by the university. And then the next bullet is that you can also share important information such as work hours, commute, outside obligations, and ideal numbers for units for fall 2025. This is very important because, as you may know, science and math are very rigorous subjects. And so with that comes a lot of time that needs to be put in these courses every semester. And so if we can find out, hey, are you working part-time? Are you working 20, 30, 40 hours, right? Do you have other outside obligations outside of school that may hinder potentially you being a full-time, whether it's 12 units, 13, all the way up to maybe 15 units, right? This information is valuable because we do personally create these course recommendations for you. And so we do take the time to read all of this information, make sure that the course recommendations match your availability, match what you're looking for. And some students may end up putting there, hey, I don't want to take more than 13 units. And so we see that and we ensure and we kind of move things around to make sure that you're taking the necessary courses for your degree, but also maintaining that requirement that you're asking us to meet. And then the next bullet is this information will help your advisor recommend the right schedule for the fall semester. And then lastly, if you haven't completed this survey, it is due, or it was due on June 1st. So for whatever reason, if you haven't completed it, you can still complete it, submit it as soon as possible. So we ensure that we have that information, and then we can kind of just help you along the road the best way that we can. Next slide. All right, so we've hit that Q&A time frame. So if you do have any additional questions based off of the information we provided, or if you feel like there was some information that wasn't really answered that pertains to math and chemistry placement, throw them in the Q&A and we will ensure that we review them and answer them as they come. Let's see. And I want to thank, my colleagues here for being able to answer these questions as they're coming in. It just makes the whole process a lot smoother. All right, so seems like all answers have been answered so far. So we'll wait a couple more minutes to see if you guys have any questions that pop up and that we can answer. So feel free to ask those now. All right, so we have them coming in. There is one that says, as someone registered for the molecular bio and physiology major. Once I take and place Calculus 1, am I done with calculus? Yes. So as a bio student, the highest math placement is going to be Math 119. So once you complete the Math 119 course, and that is going to be with a passing grade, either a C, B, or A, we always try to shoot for an AB because it is an MSDR. That is a major specific degree requirement course. So we do have a separate webinar for that. So if you're interested in kind of knowing what that is, I strongly encourage you that you kind of enroll in that webinar so we can discuss a little bit more about that. But to answer your question, yes, if you are a bio student and or any of your majors fall within the biology major, then the highest math is going to be Math 119. So once you're done, you are done. Next question is, I'm a bio major. Do I have to take chemistry placement test too? So you don't necessarily have to take a chemistry placement, but it is recommended. And the reason why it's recommended, because again, it helps you kind of determine where you are with chemistry, and it helps us determine where you are as well. So it could be that you take the exam and you think you're going to place poorly, but you actually do well. Some students take it as a refresher just to kind of get an idea and a sense of what material will be covered in the chemistry courses. So it is strongly encouraged. There is a fee for the chemistry Chem ALEKS. As opposed to the Math ALEKS. The Math ALEKS is completely free. It's covered by the institution, which is why we always recommend every student to take it just to know where they are in placement. Let's say you end up getting a very poor grade or poor score in that placement, either math or chemistry. Don't worry, we'll always take the highest score, whether that is going to be AP, IB, or any type of placement exam score that you submitted. We'll always take the highest one. All right, so let's see what else here. For biochemistry, if I pass AP Calc BC with a 3 or higher, that means I'm done with calculus, correct? So for biochemistry, you do need, let me see, let me read that question again. Higher than means I'm done with calculus, correct? So for biochemistry, you do need calculus 1 and calculus 2. Not too sure. My memory is not serving me very well, but it could be that you also need calculus 3. If any of my other colleagues can kind of chime in on that one, if there's going to be additional calculus that is needed for that one.
I'll go ahead and throw into the webinar chat our link to major requirements. So anyone who's here, you can take a look at this link, and it lists all the CNSM major our majors, and then it also includes a link to the catalog, which will give you a full list of the courses required for that major, as well as 4-year degree roadmap. So it'll also give you a sense of the sequence of courses as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Shannon. We do have another question here, and it says, when will we receive our results for ALEKS? And how do we know if we are required to take the Chem ALEKS? So Chem ALEKS, again, is not a requirement. It is optional. Same thing with the Math ALEKS. They're both optional. They are just used as tools for you and the advisors to determine where the appropriate math and chem placement is for you. If you feel like you don't have enough of these scores that are coming in to kind of determine what your placement is. So some students haven't taken any AP, any IB, or any other kind of exam placement during high school. And so this is actually a very good kind of resource for you to use if that's kind of like where you're at right now. The math is free, but Chem ALEKS is not, but they're both voluntary, meaning they're optional. They're not required. And then as far as when will you receive your results? Typically, the rule of thumb would be about a week to 2, because again, once you're done with that, those scores have to be sent over to the institution, which would be us, and then our university has to kind of process those and determine where you actually are getting credit for based off of your score.
And if I could just jump in, sorry, I'm sort of anonymous voice from the void, everyone. For Math ALEKS, the good news is this specific assessment, I believe those scores are usually updated within 48 hours. But on your side, when you're taking the Math ALEKS exam, when you complete it, you'll immediately see the score on your end. So you can screenshot it and you'll know right away what's up.
Awesome. Let's see what else. Just reading through and seeing what questions are being asked right now. When do we choose our classes? So course recommendations will be sent out later throughout the summer, and as we get closer to your SOAR orientation date. So keep an eye out on your email, and that's going to be your student email. Your CSULB student email. So if you haven't activated that yet, or you haven't logged in, I recommend that you do, because that's, at this point on, that's where all of our communications will be sent to. All right, let's see here. So that's done. So a student asked, if I got a score of 3 or higher in the AP chemistry exam, I don't need to take the Chem ALEKS. That is correct. If you are happy with that score, then you are good to go. You do not have to take that Chem ALEKS. Again, the Chem ALEKS and Math ALEKS are both optional. Let's see. There's another student here that said, I took AP Chem my junior year and got a 3, which is the same course level that I would be placed if I got an 80 on the placement test. Does that mean I don't need to take the placement? That is correct. So again, if you got a 3 and you are happy with that score, you don't have to take any additional exams, I'm sorry. The only thing we do ask is that you submit your AP scores. Same thing goes with your IB scores, with any transfer credit, any courses that you've taken throughout your high school career. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, let's say, a chemistry or math course. It could be a GE course that you took during high school. If you completed it and you received a grade for it, we ask that you submit those transcripts as soon as possible, because again, it's for your benefit. You could be potentially done with a particular GE category, if that would be the case, and you do not have to take that later on, but we would not know that information until we receive those transcripts or placement exam scores. You'd be surprised how many students actually get passing grades in just courses that they take or placement exams scores that they receive, and they do not submit them in until maybe like their second or third semester, and by then they've already taken specific courses that they would otherwise not have to take. So we strongly recommend that you submit those as soon as possible. Let's see here. So just to be sure, the chem test is highly recommended but not required, even for majors of STEM. That is correct. So the chem ALEKS placement exam is not a requirement. It is a recommendation. And again, these are all meant to be tools to help you kind of determine where you are currently in the chem material. Let's see, I got an A in my regular chem class in high school, and I did not take AP Chem. Should I take the placement? Yes. So an A in chem during high school can get you so far. kind of like what we reviewed in the material. The exam, on the other hand, is if you received an A and you feel very confident in chemistry, then we strongly encourage you to take that ALEKS exam and see where you are. If you received, again, anywhere between anything above 80 will grant you credit. But again, if you fall anywhere below that, at least that kind of tells you, right, where you are in the material as opposed to where you were in high school. A good thing here is that, let's say you take the math ALEKS, you can take those repeatedly. So if you don't get the grade that you want and you're like super, super close, and this also pertains to the Chem ALEKS, let's say you're like super close to that 80, maybe you're shy by a point, maybe 2 points, and you feel like, hey, you know what? If I retake this exam, I can potentially get an 80 or higher on my second attempt or third attempt, because it's been a while since I've taken any of these courses. You can do them, redo the exam, and then the moment you received an 80 or higher, you get that credit, right? So it's always recommended to do that. How do we submit our AP scores and transcripts? So the transcripts are going to be based off, and I'm assuming you're referring to college courses that you took in high school, whether it was like dual enrollment or some form of program like that. You would essentially have to transfer those transcripts from the college that you attended. And this is something a lot of students kind of mix up. When you take courses during high school, and they're like college courses, your high school will have them in their transcripts. But the way that the university process transcripts is that they only process the courses associated with the sending institution. So in this case, your high school is sending the transcripts over. They will only give you credit, and they will only count the courses in that transcript that are associated with your high school. So if you have any, like, let's say GE courses that you took at a community college, they will not account for those. They'll see them, but they will not give you the appropriate credit until they receive it from that community college. And so some community colleges do offer free transcripts for like the first and second transcripts. Some don't. Some have a smaller fee, maybe about $4. And fees that I've seen are roughly around like $4 all the way up to like maybe $12 to $15. So it completely depends on the community college that you attended, but you do have to send those over. And then as far as your AP scores, that would be through College Board. So you want to make sure that you log in there. Every student who has taken an exam through them in high school has access to that. So they'll have like a little area there where you can submit the scores to a potential institution. In this case, you just type in Long Beach State, and then all of that information will be there as well. Let's see. How do I know if I need to take the Chem ALEKS if I haven't gotten it sent? So for ALEKS, whether it's math or chemistry, you will not get an email. Excuse me. You will not get an email inviting you to like take it, right? This is information that is typically provided through either an email through your advising center, either your counselor in your high school kind of mentioned it, or information from webinars like this. You will never receive like an invite for it. You can access it through your student center. So if you're interested in taking either the ALEKS Chem or the ALEKS Math, all you have to do is just log into your student center, your SSO, and there should be a checklist there that allows you to actually take that exam or start enrolling to be able to take the placement exam. Let's see. I've been studying for about an hour and a half to 2 hours a day for the past week. Would you say that it's a pretty solid plan? Yeah, so typically for every course, for every unit a course is worth, we want to make sure that we allocate roughly around 2 to 3 hours of study time per week, right? So just kind of do that simple math there. If you're going to be a full-time student, that in itself will essentially be a full-time job because of the amount of time that you do need to take for studying, for homework, for activities, etc. Now, if you're working part-time, it is completely doable, but I would say that the best person to kind of gauge whether or not you need to reduce the units or potentially reduce the hours of work would be you. That's where we take the first semester to really gauge in. The priority would be your chemistry and your math classes first. And so that's where most of your study time is going to be taking place. And the good thing is that we kind of prioritize a balanced schedule. You'll kind of know this as we progress towards the summer and you start getting those course recommendations. But typically, it would be about 2 major courses. Some students might end up only having one, like for instance, a math student would only have a math course, right? And 3 GEs. But for a science student, you might end up getting a chemistry, a math, and a couple GE courses. And it's done that way to ensure that there is a balanced schedule for that first semester to allow students to take that extra time for studying, to take the extra time for outside responsibilities as well. All right. If you guys have additional questions, feel free to put those in the Q&A box. We do have an additional question here. It says, if I took honors chemistry sophomore year and got a B, do I still need to take the chem placement? So again, as long as you received an A or a B in chemistry during high school, you should be good. Because you took chemistry so long ago, I would say sophomore year, I would still encourage you to take the Chem ALEKS. The last thing that we want is for you to come in and get placed in, let's say, in chemistry 111A, and it ends up being a course that it is more of a troublesome course for you, despite you receiving a B in honors chemistry. So if you take that Chem ALEKS placement, it will essentially give you an insight on where you are with the material and whether or not you feel comfortable taking that material your first semester. And if you are comfortable and you get a passing grade, then great. And if, let's say, you do get a passing grade and it's something that you kind of want to refresh on, then that's where you would come in and speak with your academic advisor and we can make those adjustments. But without that knowledge, we're kind of going in blindsided.
Dennis, could I add one little thing to that as well?
Yeah.
So I'm putting in the chat, if you go to our chem placement website, they do have information on how you're going to place based on your math placement and all that good stuff. In addition to that, there's a sequence of videos. So for folks who maybe they took chemistry a long time ago and they need to kind of dust off their shelves a little bit and get back up to speed with it, like I totally would need to. There's a series of videos there that are that you don't have to sign up for Chem ALEKS for. So those, what I would say is maybe even start there and see if those videos are kind of like refreshing your memory. And if you want a little bit more, then like Dennis suggests, go ahead and sign up for the Chem ALEKS. That will maybe give you a little bit more of a deeper dive. But start with those videos, because if you're starting to feel like, I kind of got it after reviewing these videos, then maybe you're in pretty good shape, to hit the ground running this fall.
Awesome, awesome. Thanks for that, Shannon. We do have 2 additional questions here. The first one asks, how do I know if my high school transcripts have been received? So essentially, there's 2 ways that you can do this. In your student center, on the right-hand side, there's like a to-do list that you would essentially need if there are going to be some documents that are still needed. If it says submit high school transcripts, then that means that they haven't received them. And then it also depends on the method that you sent them over. So if you sent them over via mail, it typically takes a little longer for them to receive and process. If you've done that through electronic method, then typically it's about 24 to 48 business hours for them to receive and process. In the event that, let's say you submitted it 2-3 weeks ago and it was electronic or via mail and it's still showing that they haven't received it, then the second method would be contacting enrollment services via phone. You can always go in person as well, but I kind of just find it easier just to call them up because they'll be able to kind of provide the same information. And then they'll kind of give you an update on where that's at, if it's been processed, if it's still pending. But yeah, that would be the first step to ensure that you have sent them over. And then depending on when you sent them over, kind of give them a buffer for them to process. Let's see here. So if you don't take the Chem ALEKS, what Chem class, where'd that go? So if you don't take the Chem ALEKS, what Chem class would you be put in? This would be completely dependent on other criteria that we receive. So just off the bat, I would not be able to tell you that you're going to be placed in general chemistry or maybe intro to general chemistry. Again, the ALEKS placement is just one identifier on where you could potentially be placed. There are other factors and other identifiers that would kind of tell us exactly what course you're going to be put in during your first semester. So if you kind of want to know a little bit more about that, I would say reach out to our Academic Advising Center. You can shoot us an email, and then we can kind of provide you a little bit more information on that in the event that you did not submit any extra exam placement scores or potential course credit transfer that you could have taken. Let's see. So I sent my transcripts through Parchment weeks ago, and my to-do list states I still need. Okay, so reach out to enrollment services, and they'll be able to kind of tell you a little bit more of a real, like a live update on where that process is. And then if they need you to kind of resend those transcripts, because sometimes they do get lost in the transition, that's something that they would be able to tell you. But my recommendation is reach out to them, and they'll be able to give you kind of more of an accurate update on that processing. Do I still have to send my AP biology score? I heard that they don't count those in college. Yeah, so again, submit any AP scores that you've received, and if you received a high enough score, then you will get credit. And then depending on what AP exam that you took, that will also depend whether or not we can provide, the university can provide you credit for a particular course that we offer here on campus. So to answer that in short, yes, any AP exam, any type of placement exam that you've taken and you know you received a passing grade, submit that. That way you can get at least some credit, or you can allow the university to process and figure out if credit can be given to you. All right, so we have about 5 more minutes. If you have any additional questions that haven't been answered, please put them in the Q&A box. Other than that, if you feel like all of the questions have been answered, or any kind of gray area that you may have had prior to this webinar has been cleared out, you are more than welcome to kind of just exit the webinar. We will be here for an additional 5 minutes to answer any upcoming answers that may be asked within that time frame. So other than these two, are there any other placement tests that we may need to take for first year incoming students? Nope. So as science and math major students, these are going to be the two main placements that we kind of recommend students to look into, because again, it's a big indicator on the type of courses they're going to be recommended for their first semester. So if you've already either taken these exams or are not interested in taking any of these, or just maybe one or two or the other, then you are completely good. If there's any additional missing documentation that is not necessarily required by the university, but could potentially help you, and again, I'm going to reference like your course transcripts from any courses that you took at a community college during high school, send those over, and then that way we can process that. But yes, to answer your question, these would essentially be the only two placement exams that we recommend our students to take in this particular time. All right, so it says, I was doing the orientation in Canvas and it told me to register for GE classes. Do I have to register for them, or is all the registration going to happen on the day? So enrollment for any classes, whether that is going to be your pre-major courses in the sciences or in the mathematics, in addition to GE courses, all of that is done during your orientation. So if you haven't received your date or you kind of don't know when that is, check your email. They should have already submitted an email communication with all of that information. If you haven't received them, you can reach out to SOAR and find out when your orientation is. But yes, all of the enrollment processes for your classes will happen during your SOAR orientation. If you do not get a 3 or higher on the AP biology exam, do you recommend still sending the score? I would send it. I mean, from my understanding, sending the scores are free. I may be wrong with that. Shannon, do you know if there's a charge for those AP scores?
Unfortunately, there is. I think it's a modest charge, but nonetheless, it does cost a little bit of money. And I'm looking up right now. And what I'm going to do for this person who's kind of on the fence about whether or not they need to send in their bio APs, I just put in the chat a link to AP scores. And there, when you look up bio, you're going to see, well, am I able to share my screen? Let me see. I can do that.
You should.
Bear with me one sec, you guys. Thank you.
There. I think you should. You should be able to now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So this is advanced placement credit. So you get a list of any advanced placement here. You can see that bio is listed a couple of times, and that's based on the score. So if you get a score of 3, a score of 4, a score of 5. So depending on the score, that's going to impact what you could potentially satisfy in terms of major course requirement. It is my understanding that in all cases, you will be given unit credit, meaning that's your overall unit credit. So, everyone has to earn a total of 120 units. So for every AP that you earn a passing grade in, you'll be granted unit credit for that. That'll go towards your 120 units. So that can be super helpful. So I'd say just use this as a guide. Once your score is in, if you see that it's a 3 or greater, go ahead and send it in so you can get that credit and get those units.
Awesome, awesome. And then I think the last question here is, what is the charge for the Chem ALEKS? So from my understanding, last time I checked, it was roughly around $30 for that Chem ALEKS. So it is a hefty amount, but again, if you feel like you can benefit from this Chem ALEKS, whether it's to determine if the placement that you're going to be getting or you think you're ready for is actually the placement that you're ready for, or just as a refresher, go ahead and do the Chem ALEKS. If the concern is more so the price, then again, it's an optional thing. You don't have to take the Chem ALEKS. On the other side, Math ALEKS is completely free, meaning there is no charge for any of our students. So if you just want to take it just to take it, go for it. If you don't want to take it, that is completely okay as well. Let's see here. Cool. Awesome. So I think we've hit that time. We're about 1 minute over. If there are no more questions, you guys are free to go. I think I'm going to answer this last one before we kind of end this webinar. So this question is, when can I start paying for for the parking permit at CSULB. So this is going to be a question that you ask Student Financial Services. So if you contact them, you can call them and just kind of figure out if that option is available. Or you can also check your student center. There should be an option there for parking. And if you go there and the option is available, I would 100% recommend that you do that. Or if it's not, then you can just wait a couple more weeks for that processing to happen on their end. Awesome. So before I let you guys go, I want to remind you that there are multiple webinars happening this month with very important information, and I would say crucial information for you to know, because most of these questions do end up getting asked by students, and then to kind of just get that out of the way and know the information ahead of the semester. I would recommend that you join our webinars and get this information out there, so you understand the processing behind it. So I believe there should be more email communications going out sometime within the next couple weeks regarding these webinars. So if you can and you have the time to visit and join our webinars, please do so. Other than that, thank you for being here, and we appreciate your time. And I'm looking forward to meeting all of you guys in person during our SOAR orientation.